Yeah, Aniket, now it is coming, it seems. Yeah, sorry. Please continue now.
All
Thank
right,
you.
all right, no problem.
Aniket?
Yeah,
Yeah, you
Of
can
the
carry on, Nana. Now it is coming.
all right, thanks.
I can see that now.
rectangle is
Thank you.
red. Awesome. The numerator shows us how many of the parts are red. 4 of the pieces are red. The denominator shows us how many total parts the rectangle is split into. The rectangle is split into 5 equal parts. 4 out of 5 parts are red. That means 4/5 of the rectangle is red. Wonderful job. All right, here is the last one. I know you've got this. What fraction of this circle is red? What fraction of this circle is red? Yes, 3/8. 3/8 of the circle is red. Very cool. The numerator shows us how many of the parts are red. 3 of the parts are red. The denominator shows us how many total parts the circle is split into. The circle is split into 8 equal parts. 3 out of 8 parts are red. That means 3/8 of the circle is red. You did an amazing job learning about fractions. A fraction is a way to show a part of a whole. The top number of a fraction is called the numerator. The numerator shows how many parts you have. The bottom number of a fraction is called the denominator. The denominator shows how many equal parts the whole is split into. And this line actually means division. The numerator is being divided by the denominator. That's a fraction. And now you've got some good fraction practice under your belt. Keep up the great work. You'll be a fractions master in no time. Well done. You really got the hang of this. Thanks for watching all the way to the end and learning with me. I hope you had.
All right, well, that was just a quick introduction to fractions and what they were. So we can move on to our lesson now. All right, so part two of our lesson is naming and identifying simple fractions. So in the next part of our lesson, we will learn to quickly name and identify simple fractions. We will also briefly go over something called simplifying. Fractions that we will work with include 1/2, 1/3, and 1/4. So common fractions to remember. There are a lot of fractions. Actually, I think there are infinite fractions. Some are more common than other, meaning they appear more times. Naming, identifying, and memorizing common fractions will be important as you advance in mathematics, as you will be quickly able to solve problems that include fraction components. Some common fractions include, like we talked about earlier, 1/2, 1/3, and 1/4. So, one method. One helpful method that can be used to quickly identify fractions is by looking at their numerators and denominators. This seems complex, right? To be honest, it really isn't. 500 divided by 1000 may seem hard because it has such big numbers. But big numbers doesn't mean it's easy to compute. As you can see here, 500 and 1000 have one big common factor in common. It's 500. If you divide each value, meaning the numerator and the denominator, by 500, your simplified version will be 1/2. 500 divided by 500 is 1, because anything divided by itself is 1, and 1000 divided by 500 is 2, because 500 can go into 1000 exactly twice. Therefore, the final simplified fraction is 1/2. Another way to easily solve this is to realize that the numerator, 500, is exactly half of the denominator, which is 1000. This means the fraction will always simplify to 1/2. And this is true for anything that follows this principle. For example, 600 over 1200, 50 over 100, 100 over 200, you get the idea. So what about with 1/3 and 1/4, the second and third most common fractions? For 1/3 and 1/4, we can use another method that is a bit similar to the one we use for 1/2. Let's say we have 300 over 900. So the next method we could use is to cancel out the zeros. When you have 300 and 900, two things that have common is that they both have two zeros. Since these are common to both fractions and we're dividing, we can cancel out both these zeros. This leaves us with the 3 and the 9, which is still in a fraction. So it's 3/9. Now we can use the method we used for 1/2, which is identifying a common factor. 3 is a common factor, so when we divide both the numerator and denominator by 3, it gets us 1/3. 3 divided by 3 is 1, and 9 divided by 3 is 3. But what if there are no zeros to cancel out? Let's say we have the fraction 16 over 64. As you can see, there are no zeros. In this case, we have to simplify using common factors. One common factor is 4, or even 2. If we use 2, the fraction could simplify to 8 over 32, and we could use 2 again until we get to the simplest form. But let's use something a bit bigger, 4. If we divide the fraction 16 over 64 by 4, 16 divided by 4 is 4, and 64 divided by 4 is 16. Now we are left with 4 over 16. Noticing that 4 is a common factor yet again, we can reduce this fraction to our final form of 1/4. 4 divided by 4 is 1, and 16 divided by 4 is 4. This is a final simplified fraction, 1/4. A little bit more information. While the method of canceling out the zeros and finding common factors does work, it often takes a long time and is not that efficient for more complex problems. The method of memorization works really well for complex problems, but takes a long time to master. So let's watch another video on simplifying fractions. It'll just be more in depth than what we already covered. Credits to Math with Mr. J for the video.
What happened?
Some bad people tried to hack me with sad affirmations.
Sad, Craig?
No. We're protected.
AT&T Dynamic Defense help protect us because small businesses need us.
Sorry for
So he's
the
not
ad.
sad. Guess we don't need these.
I think we do.
Welcome to Math with Mr. J.
In this video, I'm going to cover how to simplify a fraction, also known as writing a fraction in its lowest terms. Now in this video, I'll go through two examples, which should be helpful for anyone looking for a quick review or refresher. If simplifying fractions is new to you, or you need more examples, I have a part 2 where I go through a couple more. That link is down in the description. So no matter where you're at as far as simplifying fractions, hopefully between these two videos, we can get it down. Let's jump into our examples, starting with number 1, where we have 4/8. So when it comes to simplifying fractions, we are looking to get the smallest numbers in value that we possibly can for our numerator and denominator. We do this by finding common factors between our numerator and denominator, numbers that we can divide both our numerator and denominator by. Once the only common factor is 1, we are in simplest form. So for number 1 here, I'm going to write out the factors for both 4 and 8, and then we'll go from there. Now you do want to get to the point where you do not need to write out the factors when simplifying, but again, for this one, I will. We'll start with 4, so let's come down here. So when it comes to factors, we need to think all of the numbers that we can multiply together to equal 4, or all of the numbers that 4 is divisible by. You can also think of it as all of the numbers that go into 4, so to speak. So we can start our factor list with 1 and then the number itself, 4, because we know that 1 times 4 equals 4. or you can think of it as 1 and 4 go into 4. So you can always start with 1 and the number itself. So let's think if there are any other factors. Well, we know 2 times 2 equals 4, or we can think of it as 2 goes into 4. So 2 is a factor. And those are all of the factors of 4, 1, 2, and 4. Now let's list our factors of 8. So we can start with 1 and then 8. I'll leave a gap in there so we can fill in any other factors. Well, we know 2 times 4 equals 8, or we can think 2 and 4 go into 8. We can divide 8 by 2 and 4. So let's put 2 and 4. And those are all of the factors of 8, 1, 2, 4, and 8. So we want to use the greatest common factor between 4 and 8 here. That way we can simplify in one step. So the greatest common factor is 4 here. So let's divide both our numerator and denominator by 4 in order to break this fraction down and get it into simplest form. And remember, if you divide both your numerator and denominator by the same number, we are going to get an equivalent fraction. So we are not changing the value of the fraction when we simplify. 4 divided by 4 is 1. 8 divided by 4 is 2. So we have 1/2. Now the only common factor between 1 and 2 is 1. So this is in simplest form, and we are done. So 4/8 in simplest form is 1/2. Now I do want to show you another path that we can take in order to simplify this fraction. So let me rewrite 4/8 here. Now another common factor is 2. So what happens if we divide both 4 and 8 by 2? So let's do this. Divide by 2. Divide by 2. 4 divided by 2 is 2. 8 divided by 2 is 4. So we get 2/4, which is different than 1/2. But we still have a common factor of 2. So we can divide by 2 again, and we get 2 divided by 2 is 1. 4 divided by 2 is 2. So we get 1/2 that way as well. So something to keep in mind. There can be different paths to get to the simplest form of a fraction. Now, if you use the greatest common factor between your numerator and denominator, you will simplify in one step. If you use a factor that is less than the greatest common factor, it will take more than one step. Let's move on to number 2, where we have 6/15. Let's write out the factors for 6 and 15. So we need to think all the numbers that we can multiply. Let's start with 6. All the numbers we can multiply to equal 6, or all of the numbers we can divide 6 by. All of the numbers that go into 6, so to speak. So always start with 1 and the number itself. Put a gap in between, and your spacing and ability to think of factors will get better the more you do. So let's think if there are any other factors of 6. Well, we know 2 times 3 equals 6. So 2 and 3 are factors of 6. And those are the factors of 6. 1, 2, 3, and 6. So let's list the factors of 15. So we have 1, and then the number itself, 15. What other factors of 15 are there? Well, 3 and 5. 3 times 5 equals 15. Or we can think that 15 is divisible by both 3 and 5. We are able to divide 15 by both 3 and 5, and it works out without a remainder. So let's look for any common factors. Well, 1 is a common factor, but we want something greater than 1. We have a greatest common factor of 3. So let's divide our numerator and denominator by 3. 6 divided by 3 is 2. 15 divided by 3 is 5. Now the only common factor between 2 and 5 is 1. So we are done. We are simplified. 6/15 in simplest form is 2/5. Now one more thing I do want to mention is that a fraction can already be in simplest form. So for example, if you have the fraction of 3/4 and you are looking to simplify, that is already in simplest form. The only common factor between 3 and 4 is 1, so that would be in simplest form as is. So something else to keep in mind. So there you have it. There's how you simplify a fraction. I hope that helped. Thanks so much for watching. Until next time, peace.
Alright, well, that was just a video on how to simplify fractions. So our last part was part 3, fractions of a set. In the final part of the lesson, we will be going over fractions of a set. This basically means multiplying fractions by a whole number and figuring out the solution. This also involves real-world application. So what does fraction of a set even mean? In simple terms, fraction of a set means dividing a total group of objects into smaller, equal-sized subsets to identify a specific part. Some examples include 1/3 of 12 marbles. So the fraction in here would be 1/3, and the set would be 12 marbles. That's why it's called fractions of a set. So 1/3 of 12 marbles are red. 1/4 of 12 apples are green. 1/2 of 12 books are blue. When you learn how to solve fractions of a set problems, they become a valuable asset when you are solving more complex fraction problems. So first, before we get into example, let's watch a video on fractions of a set. This will definitely help you get a better understanding of fractions of a set and also introduce you to some real-world example problems.
Stop taking meeting notes and let ClickUp AI Note Taker do it for you. It allows you to focus on your meetings.
Hello and welcome back to Wrongmar. In today's maths lesson, we're taking another look at fractions. Today, we're going to be working with a whole range of different denominators. Our goal for today's lesson is to find the fraction of a number, a set, or a shape with a range of different denominators. But first, let me ask you my favorite question to ask at the start of these fraction lessons, and that is, can you remember what a fraction is? I can't stress how important it is that you understand what a fraction is. Pause the video and write down what a fraction is. Well, fingers crossed you remember from the last few lessons that a fraction is part of a whole number, shape, or set of objects. That word part is the most important thing to remember. Now, you might remember in our last lesson, we took a closer look at the numbers that actually make up a written fraction. We learned that there was a top number and a bottom number in a fraction. But can you remember what we call these numbers? And more importantly, can you remember what they mean? Pause the video and see if you can remember what the top number is called and what it means, and what the bottom number is called and what it means. Well, you might remember that the top number in a fraction is called the numerator. This tells us how many objects or parts have been taken. The bottom number is called the denominator. This tells us how many parts or objects there are altogether. If you need a little bit of help remembering which one is the numerator and which one is the denominator, remember that the denominator is down under the line. D for denominator, D for down. Remember that when we are finding fractions of numbers or sets or shapes, what we're really doing is dividing the number or the set into equal groups. Take a look at the sets of fruit down below. I have drawn a circle around a fraction of each set. Can you figure out what fraction of each fruit I have circled. Pause the video and write down the fraction of each set. Well, remember, to figure out the fraction of the set, we count how many are circled. So for bananas, that's going to be 3 bananas. That's going to be our numerator, our top number. And then we count how many there are in total. For the bananas, there was 4. So our denominator is 4. We have taken 3 out of 4 bananas, which is equal to 3/4 as a fraction. For the apples, we have taken 2 out of 6 apples. So that will be 2/6, which we write like this. For our strawberries, you can see 4 out of 10 strawberries have been taken. So that is 4/10. We write that as a fraction like this. And finally, 1 out of 8 oranges are circled. So that is going to equal to 1/8, which we write like this, 1 out of 8. Great stuff. So that is a fraction of a set. Take a look at these shapes down below. Some of the shapes have a fraction of them shaded in dark blue. One of these shapes shows the fraction 2/6. Can you pause the video and see if you can figure out which one has got 2/6 shaded in blue? Remember, the top number of the fraction tells us how many parts are shaded. The bottom number tells us how many parts there are altogether. Pause the video and use this to help you find the correct answer. Did you get it? The correct answer is this shape here, because you see 2 parts are shaded, that's our top number, and altogether there are 6 parts to the shape, our bottom number, the denominator. Here's an extra little challenge for you. Take a look at this shape that I have marked here. We just figured out that 2/6 of this shape are shaded. So what fraction of the shape is not shaded? Pause the video and see if you can figure that out. Well, did you get it correct? The answer, of course, is 4/6. 4 pieces out of 6. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's take a look at a different shape that's been shaded. Here we have a circle, and below there are 4 answers that could possibly be correct. Only one of them is right, though. Can you pause the video and see if you can figure out which of these fractions is shaded blue on the picture above? Pause the video and choose the correct answer. Remember, the top number in a fraction tells us how many shaded pieces there are. The bottom number tells us how many pieces there are altogether. Use this to help you solve the question. Pause the video and give it a try. So the answer we should have got is 2/5. How do we get that? Well, remember the top number tells us how many shaded parts there are, 1, 2. And the bottom number tells us how many parts there are altogether, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's 2/5, or 2 out of 5. Try that bonus question again. Now that you know what fraction of the shape is shaded, can you pause the video and figure out what fraction is not shaded? Pause the video and give it a try. Well, did you get 3/5? You can see that 3 parts are not shaded, and there's 5 parts altogether. So our fraction is 3.
I got another sales call now, and I can't even remember the customer's name.
5ths. How about if we have a question like this? We have a load of pineapples here, and we want to circle 1/4 of them. Maybe we're giving them to somebody as a gift or something. How would we find out what 1/4 of all these pineapples would be? Well, this problem is a little bit trickier because the denominator of the fraction and the total number of pineapples are not the same. So it's not as straightforward as we're used to. First, we need to know exactly how many pineapples there are altogether. So when we count them up, we're going to see that there's 12 pineapples altogether. Now we need to circle 1/4, or 1 in every 4 pineapples. To work out how many this is, we're going to need to divide the total amount of pineapples by the denominator of our fraction. Our number sentence would look like this: 12 divided by 4. And when we divide 12 by 4, the answer is 3. So we needed to circle 3 pineapples to show 1/4 of the set. Now, using division is definitely the best way of finding fractions of bigger numbers. But for now, if that's a little bit tricky for you, another thing you could do is try this. We want to find out what 1/4 of these pineapples are. Because we understand that the fraction 1/4 means 1 out of every 4 pineapples, what we can do is circle every 4th pineapple. 1, 2, 3, and circle the 4th. 1, 2, 3, and circle the 4th. 1, 2, 3, and circle the 4th. You see, we got the same answer. 3 pineapples are circled. That's because we circled 1 out of every 4 pineapples, or 1/4 of the pineapples. Using what you just learned, try and circle 1/3 of these watermelons. Either use the division way or do the counting way. It doesn't matter, you'll get the same answer. Pause the video and give it a try. Well, how did you get on? Remember, we need to circle 1/3 or 1 in every 3 watermelons. To figure out how we might do this, we can divide the amount of watermelons by the denominator. In this case, that's 3. So 6 watermelons divided by 3 is equal to 2 watermelons. So 1/3 is equal to 2. You would get exactly the same answer if you marked 1 in every 3 watermelons. See? Okay, try this one all by yourself. I want you to circle 1/5 of this group of avocados. Either divide the total number of avocados by the denominator and find it out that way, or circle 1 in 5 avocados. Pause the video and give it a try. Well, how did you get on? So in this one, we needed to circle 1 in every 5, or 1/5 of all the avocados. To work out how many this is, we divided the amount of avocados by the denominator, and that gave us this number sentence, 15 divided by 5. And our answer is 3. So we needed to circle 3 avocados to show 1/5. Now, finding fractions of sets is one of the trickier parts of maths with fractions. So don't worry if you need to practice this a little bit more. If you need to go back and watch parts of the video again, do so. If you feel like you're ready to try the practice activities down below, you can give them a try instead. That's all we have time for today. Until next time, take care.
That was a really good video on what fractions of a set were. So let's move on to one example and then we'll wrap it up for today. So here's our example problem for fractions of a set. Abdullah has $18 in allowance. If he wants to spend 1/3 of his allowance money on candy, how much money will Abdullah have spent on candy? So I know the guy in the video talked about a method, but one way I like to go about solving these problems is multiplication. Hey, yeah, I know that's pretty funny. I'm doing the exact opposite of what he said in the video, division. I also like to identify keywords such as of, which in a math word problem means multiplied by. Oops. Alright. You can see in this sentence he says if he wants to spend 1/3 of his allowance money, I can replace this word of by multiplied by. Of means multiply, and Abdullah's allowance money is 18. Therefore, this sentence can be written as 1/3 multiplied by his allowance money, which is $18. So, 1/3 multiplied by 18. Now, we have to multiply a fraction by a whole number. To write 18 as a fraction, all we do is add a 1 under 18 to make it 18 divided by 1. This is because anything divided by 1 is itself. Now we have 1/3 times 18 divided by 1. We first multiplied the numerators, 18 and 1, and then the denominators, 3 and 1. We keep the fraction format. So our solved fraction is 18 because of 18 times 1 divided by 3 because of 3 times 1. This can also be written as 18 divided by 3. This is a very simple division problem, and it computes to 6. Therefore, Abdullah will have spent $6 of his allowance money on candy. Fractions at word problems, they will take quite a while to master and actually get a hang of it. And also back to the simplifying fractions and identifying common factors. If you just practice enough of that, you will really get the hang of it. And trust me when I tell you this, it will really help you in the long run with more complex fraction problems. So that's all we have time for today. So thanks for listening, and I hope you learned a lot in today's lesson. See you next time.